Sexual desires are strongest and most powerful of all human emotions. It's not the desire in itself that builds wealth or genius. It's what happens when the energy is deliberately redirected. This is not only the most misunderstood principle in Think and Grow Rich, but it may also be the most powerful. Welcome to episode 11, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10th step to riches. This is maybe the most misunderstood principle in Think and Grow Rich. The transmutation of sexual desire is the gateway to becoming a genius, the most reliable way to tap into your creative imagination, your sixth sense. Remember, in the 5th step toward riches, imagination, Mr. Hill wrote, man's only limitation within reason lies in the development and use of his imagination. He directed us to 2 forms of imagination that man uses, which is synthetic and creative. The synthetic was the repurposing of or rearranging of existing ideas. And he said that's what we use the majority of the time to create our plan of how we were going to attain that of which we truly desire. But he said it also may come a time where you would need to use your creative imagination. And creative imagination is where you develop new ideas that are not currently in your subconscious. Well, as we get to step 10, sexual transmutation, Mr. Hill tells us how do we tap into our creative imagination. And he says the transmutation of sexual desire creates the faculty through which all new ideas are handed over to man. He writes, the human mind responds to stimulation. Among the most powerful of these stimuli is the urge for sex. When harnessed and transmuted, this driving force is capable of lifting man into a higher sphere of thought, which enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyance, which beset their pathway on the lower plane. Sexual desires are strongest and most powerful of all human emotions. It's not the desire in itself that builds wealth or genius. It's what happens when the energy is deliberately redirected. This is not only the most misunderstood principle in Think and Grow Rich, but it may also be the most powerful. Remember, in previous steps, Mr. Hill speaks of a thought, an idea coupled with emotion, and that's what creates the burning desire. Mr. Hill says the emotion of sex is an irresistible force against which there can be no such opposition as an immovable body. When driven by this emotion, men become gifted with a super powerful action. He tells us, understand this truth and you will catch the significance of the statement that sex transmutation contains the secret of creative ability. He defines sex transmutation as the switching of the mind away from the thoughts of physical expression, the thoughts of some other nature, that be creative work, definite purpose, or wealth-building action. The energy, the sexual energy, does not disappear. It is merely redirected. It is the same energy, just a different direction. And when directed, it's one of those positive purposes. It engages your creative imagination, creates ideas that you otherwise did not already have in your subconscious, becomes a gateway to become a genius. Mr. Hill does not define a genius from an intellectual perspective. See, anybody is capable of becoming a genius. He's simply a person who has discovered how to increase the intensity of thought to the point where they can communicate with sources of knowledge not available through ordinary rate of thought. It is basically where you've now been inspired to a level beyond your normal level. He said sex energy is the creative energy of all geniuses. There never has been and never will be a great leader, builder, or artist lacking in the driving force of sex. This energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact into some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of genius. It has to be redirected. It has to be transformed. Genius is not what you are. It's how you access infinite intelligence through the deliberate redirection of your sexual energy. And why is this important? Why is it necessary to reach the genius status of your creative imagination? Well, when sexual energy is redirected, the mind elevates to a higher rate of vibration. Creative imagination is activated. Intuition is sharpened. The bridge between the finite mind of man and the infinite intelligence opens. Transmutation is not a gift. It's a practice. It's a habit. It's the most reliable path to elevate mental state because it's in that elevated mental state that new ideas are born. It's that elevated mental state where you go from being an ordinary person to being a genius. Mr. Hill identified 10 forces that elevates the mind to a higher rate of vibration. Sexual energy is by far the most powerful, but the others were desire for expression, music, friendship, the mastermind, mental, mutual suffering, autosuggestion, fear, narcotics, and alcohol. Only the first 8 are constructive, but he tells us that the greatest achievers learn how to use the right stimuli deliberately. A man may attain to great heights of financial or business achievement solely by driving force of sex energy. But history is filled with evidence that he may usually carry with him certain traits and characteristics rather than the ability to either hold or enjoy his fortune. Mr. Hilkin tells us to encourage the presence of these emotions as the dominated thoughts in one's mind and discourage the presence of all the destructive emotions. The mind is a creature of habit. It thrives upon the dominated thoughts fed it and to the faculty of willpower. You may discourage the presence of any emotion and encourage the presence of any other. Control the mind to the power of will is not difficult, but control comes from persistence and habit. And the secret to control lies in understanding the process of transmutation. When any negative emotion presents itself in one's mind, it can be transmuted into a positive or a constructive emotion by the simple procedure of changing one's thoughts. Ultimately, what is the purpose of transmuting your sexual desire? It's to tap into your sixth sense, your creative imagination. Your sixth sense connects the finite mind of man to the infinite intelligence. It manifests itself through thoughts, ideas, and hunches. It's not mystic. It's the elevated mental state that marks the difference between a genius and an ordinary man. The genius seems to operate on a pure intuition and has learned consciously or unconsciously how to assess this frequency. The transmutation of sexual desire is the most reliable way to get there. He also tells us that sex alone is a mighty urge to action, but its forces are like a cyclone. They are often uncontrollable. So he says, love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving men to heights of superachievement. But this is the key. Love is the emotion which serves as a safety valve and ensures balance, poise, and constructive effort. When combined, these 3 emotions will lift one to an altitude of genius. The road to genius consists of the development, control, and use of sex, love, and romance. There is no other road to genius than through voluntary self-effort. A man may attain all great heights of financial or business achievements. You control your thoughts. You control how you will direct your thoughts. Know, decide, do. See you next week.